Good morning, colleagues. Time is now 3 minutes past 12, and I can see we have a couple of people who've joined in. Anna Marie, can I take over now? Time is now 3 minutes past. Can I take over now? Colleagues, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you. I think we can maybe just start with our program. We're 5 minutes already behind. Can I ask Zoliso Mpekeleni to cover her welcoming, please? Zoliso, can you hear me? Sis Zintle, can I ask you please to mute your mic? Thank you. Okay, colleagues, I'm going to quickly cover Zoliso's part. Looks like she is having some technical glitches, I'd like to believe. Um, well, we wish to welcome everybody who've taken their time to attend this webinar today. And I know we have colleagues from various provinces, Western Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, and Gauteng. And I welcome you all. And our dignitaries today, we can see everybody is a dignitary. But we also wish to welcome Anna Marie, Liasa manager from the headquarters. We wish to welcome Mari. She is the ICTLIG Western Cape convener. And we wish to welcome our facilitator from UCT. Okay, that's it. And Malusi, are you ready to cover your component? Okay, colleagues, Malusi was going to introduce our guest speaker or our presenter today, and I spoke to him earlier on. He was still on the road. I suppose he's running a bit late. I'm going to cover it very briefly here. Um, our our presenter is from the University of Cape Town, where she holds two portfolios. One, that of a manager for content and process management in the content architecture section. Her main responsibilities are to develop the team strategy, manage monitor and coordinate the team's activities. She established the team's expanding functions. She's responsible for setting standards and governance for all activities, in particular in the governing content, document management, collaboration systems such as perceptive content, handbooks, CMS, UCT, mobile app, Microsoft SharePoint, and Teams, just to list a few. Her second portfolio at the University of Cape Town is that she is a lecturer for the Knowledge Organization and Management module within the Department of Knowledge and Information Stewardship. She has accomplished the following academic accomplishments. She holds a Bachelor in Economics from University of Cape Town. She also holds a postgraduate diploma in management from University of Cape Town as well. And she also holds a postgraduate diploma in library and information studies from University of Cape Town. Her research interests are metadata, user experience, institutional repositories. And the areas of interest include metadata, user experience, information architecture, content services, records management, and technical writing, just to list a few. And the skills and expertise includes technical writing, business writing, information architecture, metadata management, information management, content services, training, and lecturing. And our presenter for today is Miss Jenny Wood from University of Cape Town. We introduce you, Miss Jenny Wood, and welcome you. You have our full attention.
Thank you very much, Ntobeko. I'm going to just leave my video on just to introduce the topic, and then I'll turn it off so you can focus on the content rather than on my moving and changing facial expressions. Okay, so thanks very much for inviting me to talk today. It's really nice to be able to share this information to a broader audience, and particularly in the library professional area. So thanks very much for having me, and I hope you find this talk really useful. So I'll stop my video now, and then we'll get on with the talk. Right, so the topic is starting a website from scratch, and thanks Ntobeko for the introduction. So I'll just start with a little bit of the agenda of what we're going to cover today. And then I've got one little introductory slide on myself, which pretty much has been covered by Ntobeko, so I won't go into any detail there. But what we're going to cover today in terms of content is really to give you an introduction to content management, just very high level concepts so that we're all on the same page in terms of what we're actually talking about when we talk about website design and website creation, website content management. So I just wanted to just cover those concepts so we have a little bit of that background, shared background. Then we're going to look at what are the different aspects of setting up a website or starting a website from scratch. So things to prepare, things to plan, implementation, and maintenance and monitoring. So I'm going to run through all those areas from preparation, where you look at strategy and budget and research and skills and your audience and any governance that you need to put in place. Then we'll look at planning the website project. So you do need to think of it as a project because there are a lot of different little steps that lead to the launch, which would be your main milestone and your main sort of deliverable. And in order to organize it properly, one would need to treat it as a project. And then the implementation is really the part where you set up and configure your site, design the website, create the content, and then publish and launch it. And then the last aspect is once you've launched it, it's not done. You basically have to keep maintaining it, keep monitoring it to make sure that it still meets the needs that it was designed for, and also to keep it current and relevant for your target audience. So that's really what we're going to cover today. I hope that's what you were expecting or looking for. So yes, thanks for the intro. So I just have a very brief couple of links which you can, I'll share the presentation afterwards, which you can look at, which basically backs up what Ntobeko said about my involvement as a part-time lecturer and with the DKIS department, and then also my varied experience. And I do have quite a broad portfolio, but particularly it covers, it's in the content management, content services area. So the Perceptive Content is a records management system. UCT Mobile is our mobile app presence. And then the component content management system that Ntobeko referred to is really a content management system that facilitates the updating of the UCT handbooks. So I do have quite a broad portfolio, also covering, I have a very strong interest in governance, particularly around content management and web content management, and then more recently in data governance. And then technical writing is my base skill, which I've had for the longest time. And then metadata and user experience and information architecture are also my areas. So that's really about me in brief. Let's get to the meat of the presentation, or rather, if you're vegetarian, the tofu. Introduction. So this is really just to give you the concepts. So really, in organizations, enterprise content management used to be the main term that was thrown around, and you might have heard Ntobeko mention content services, and currently that is actually more applicable nowadays when you're looking at content management in organizations. And because we don't just have one big content management system, we usually have several smaller or more specialized content management systems or repositories, and it's important to allow them to share metadata, to share content, and hence it used to be enterprise content management for managing content, but now it's content services. It's been redefined as content services, which is really a set of services and microservices, really that integrate and share common APIs and repositories. So you've got a wide range of content types and various areas across the organization that are involved in that. And why do I mention this now? Well, web content management falls into this area because especially in big organizations, it's one part of your overall content management framework or landscape. So one does need to keep in mind keep in mind that it fits into the bigger picture of an organization. And if you're a small organization, then you would also need to manage your content and ensure that there's cohesion between your website and your content management in your annual sort of management of your documents and other content. So what is web content management? So here we've got a nice definition from the Association of the AIIM Association. So here it's really looking at the management of content, mainly for mass delivery. So it's usually for the public, sort of an sort of openly accessible place online in a website. So it's really enabling you to present your information in a range of different ways. So you could present it in multimedia format, in using images and graphics and text and the whole combination. So it really does lend itself for that. As I mentioned, it's a subdivision of content management, and you do need to, because you need to manage that website content like you manage any other content. So it needs to be kept up to date, maintained, and looked after in terms of creating the pages, managing the pages, storing them, and also displaying that content. So you do need to have strong processes in place for ensuring that it is looked after and managed as well as possible. So that's really just a little bit of an intro. We then want to look in terms of content management, but then we look at the tool. So what do you use very often, mostly for content management? So generally, and nowadays, even small businesses use content management systems, just because very often they don't have the in-house development skills or coding skills to do that. So they often use web content management systems, or also known as website builders, or commonly known as website builders. But they basically are content management systems, and they allow you to control your content, to reuse content, automate, sort of automate processes, aggregate your content, so pull it together, and it helps with the efficiency of your editorial process, because it allows more people in your organization to be able to edit content, but it also allows for review and updating and processes, workflows to be put in place. So it really facilitates your website setup, maintenance, and controlling the content and reassembling it and so on. So that's really some definitions. I then wanted to, and then I just wanted to mention that I will be monitoring the chat. So if there are questions that you have, you're welcome to, add them to the chat, and I'll see them there and I'll respond when I can. So please feel free, if there's anything that's unclear, to ask questions as you go. Right, so the next part is looking at, okay, so we want to start a website from scratch, and I thought it would be quite nice to run through this this series of this whole process by using an example which runs through the whole process to illustrate what I'm talking about. So I thought a nice example is many of us are working from home, and if you're lucky enough to have a garden, even if it's a little garden, it's by being at home a lot, well, certainly myself, I've become more engaged in my garden. So, during breaks, I'll go outside and potter around. So I thought it would be quite nice to, as an example, to use a site that's like a gardening site for creating sort of contacting other like-minded gardeners, and also particularly from an Indigenous perspective, which is one of my interests. So I'm going to use that as the website that I'm going to be creating, and then I'll use that to illustrate the concepts that I'm talking about. Okay, so we want to start this gardening website. So the first thing we need to do is, well, we think about our website strategy. So what is the purpose of this website? Why do I want to start it? Am I marketing anything? Am I selling any product? No, not really. Am I offering services? Well, no, not really. But is it informational? Yes, because I want to share information about, projects that I'm working on in the garden, and sort of good sort of plants and Indigenous plants that I'm buying, and things that are going to work. So yes, for me, this is an informational site. Networking, potentially, I might want to network with other like-minded gardeners and learn from them and have them learn from me. So that's just a way of thinking about that example. But there might be others where it's a business website and you want to market your brand, or you want to sell products, or you want to offer services. So one really needs to, before you even begin touching a website builder or a web content management system, you first need to get your strategy in line. You need to think about, what is the purpose? What am I doing this for? Why do I want a website? And what do I want it to achieve for me? So strategy is very important. Then you need to think about your budget. Okay, so how much money do you want to invest in your website? So if it's a business website, you would probably want to ensure that you know, as part of your marketing budget, you want to portion some of that to go towards setting up a website, because this would be a big part of your marketing and your exposure. So there you probably would have some budget for it. But since my example is a personal website, I'm not necessarily wanting to spend much money. So, you know, I probably will maybe use a free hosting site. I probably won't rent a domain, but if you're a business, you would want to rent your own domain that clearly illustrates your brand. Tools and technologies, I would not necessarily want to spend money on that, but as a business you might, because you might want to custom develop your site and be able to extend it and things like that. And we'll talk more on each of these aspects later. Then training and skills development. Do I want to invest in a web design course that that helps me with creating this nice site? Fortunately, I don't need to, because I know how to do this stuff, but you might if you were starting your own. Then training, a budget for internal resources. So you might want to hire people to look after your website, or external service providers if you want to use consultancies. So you need to think about all these things when you're thinking about your budget. How much are you going to set aside, and what will this enable you to spend your money, you know, to what will this get you? Also design and information architecture, so that'll take time and skills to do. So you need to think, well, do I want to invest money on it, or am I going to do this myself? And then the actual creation of the content. Are you going to outsource that creation, or are you going to do it internally? Or do you already have content that you don't need to spend time or money in creating? So these are all things that your budget might go to. Then the next thing is research. So then you need to think about, well, okay, so I'm doing the site on gardening. So I kind of want to I want to do some benchmarking. I want to see what other gardening sites are out there, or blogs are out there, and see what they do, and how they structure their information, and what kinds of, and get some ideas for good ideas for good ways of doing things, or bad ways. You know, there might be not so good examples out there. So you want to do some benchmarking to get a sense of what your competitors are doing, or what people in your field are doing, so that you know that that users or visitors to your site wouldn't get would get what they were expecting when they came to a site like yours. So benchmarking is quite important. Then skills, and obviously you wouldn't do mirror exactly what your competitors or like similar sites are doing, but you would want to get a sense of the types of things that occur on those type of sites, so that when people visit it, their expectations are met, and maybe more. You could maybe extend on what others are doing, or do things better. And then skills and resources, you want to do some research on seeing, well, what skills do I need? What resources do I need in order to do this? And because you've already decided what your site's for, and sort of what your budget is, so you can start looking at, well, you know, what type of skills. And I'll talk more about each of these, as I mentioned, a bit later. Tools and technologies. So look into what tools and technologies are available. So there are loads of website builders, as I mentioned, out there, and some are better than others, and some often offer varied options. So you might find that, you know, some are very plug and play. You know, you basically sign up for the website builder, and they make it very, very easy for you to get started and get your site set up in no time, because they have themes and templates and so on. So you want to sort of investigate these different tools, and see what might work for you, given your budget, and given your what you're wanting, the purpose of your site and your strategy. Then you want to research your audience. So you want to think about, well, who is my target audience? So for my little gardening site, my target audience would be other gardeners or people that might be thinking about getting into gardening and aren't that sure how to get started. And maybe they want some information to get them going. So it would range from people that are quite experienced that I would want to learn from, or people that are new that might want to learn from me. So that's just an example. But if you were doing a website site, then, I mean, a business website, then you might want to be a little bit more sort of specific in your audience and start thinking in more detail about who would my audience be, what kinds of things might they want, and I'll talk about audience in more detail. Content, you need to research, well, what content should I be looking at putting on this site? And this will be nice. This research will go and will help with when you get to the actual content creation. So what content do I have already, and what content might I need to create? And looking at the benchmarking will help you there, because you'll get ideas from others. Domain name, you need to think about, well, I know what my purpose of my site is, so what's a good domain name? And then your benchmarking will give you an idea what others have used and also what domain names have been used up. So, so you need to start thinking about, if you're a business, then you'd probably want to use your business's name as the domain name, or at least a variation of it if that one's taken. But if it's your own personal site, then and if you're using a free website builder or web content management system, then you would often use their domain with your descriptor in the beginning. So you want to think about your domain name and do a bit of research as to what would be a good domain name. And then governance. You want to think about, well, what rules and policies should I set in place? And governance is more important, well, not necessarily more important for bigger organizations, but when you've got many people working together on a website, you want to make sure that you're all working in the same way and you're all conforming to the same sort of standards and processes. So in those cases, governance is very important, because you want to make sure that there's a consistent look and feel on your website, consistent style in the content creation and content writing, and a consistent images and structure of your site. So governance is very important there, and also from a security perspective as well. So you would want to look into all those aspects of what will I need in these areas and what's out there. So that's your research. Then you get into the nitty-gritty of the different areas in more detail. So skills and resources. So you need to think about, well, what skills might be needed. Generally, writing for the web is a good skill to have, to know that you don't write in exactly the same way as you would for example, in an academic essay, because that's a very different style of writing. Whereas writing for the web, if you think about how you yourself browse the website, browse websites, very often we skim and we scan and we look at headings and we jump around a lot. And so writing for the web is a particular type of writing where you don't necessarily have these long, what are often known as called walls of text, where you have no breaks and no headings in between. You would want to break things up, have small chunks of information, and make sure that the information the pages are scannable, that there are lots of hyperlinks and content cross references, links that help you jump to other areas of the page or other areas of the site. So writing for the web is a particular skill. And it's one that can be acquired, but you just need to think about, well, do I have that skill, or will I need to acquire that skill, or at least learn more about it? Graphic design, so there you'll need that depending on how much design work you want to do on your website. If you're going to use just a standard theme, then you won't need to do too much graphic design. You might need to create some images and do some light level work, or you could use free images, which are available on some free image sites, which I'll mention when we get to the content. Then information architecture. So what is information architecture? That's really the structure of your website. And as library professionals or library and information professionals, this is something that you would be interested in, because it's how you organize your content, how you structure it, what metadata you assign to it. So it's the way of structuring your website in such a way that the people that are visiting your website will be able to find the information as easily as possible and as intuitively as possible. So it's a very important part of your website. Content management. So are you going to have downloadable artifacts that you're going to upload to your site, and how are you going to manage those? Are you going to have file naming conventions? Do you need skills in content management in order to manage that? But if you're not going to do a lot of content management, then maybe you just need lightweight skills there. Web content management system usage. So depending on what website builder or web content management system you use, some are very easy to use and don't need a lot of skills to learn. Others require a little bit more time investment to learn how they work. So you just need to think about, well, you know, what sort of I might need to set aside some time to work on learning. Either way, you'll need to learn how to work that content management system. But if you already know how to use one, then you've already got those skills. Or if you have if the business has someone who knows how to use it, then you've already got those skills in-house. HTML. So that HTML is a very lightweight formatting language for the web. So it's fairly intuitive and easy to learn. So if you did need to, I would say it would be useful to have it, even though many of the website builders and content management systems make it easy for you where you less likely to need it. Certainly, I would recommend knowing it so that you are you are able to make little tweaks more easily. XML and JavaScript, maybe, but depending on how complex the site is, and whether there's going to be coding required, but I wouldn't say that's a required skill. Search engine optimization. So there, that's where you, if this is more for marketing and sales type sites where you're actually selling your services and selling products, you would want to make sure that search engines find your site, and that you are, and that they, when people search for things that you are selling, you appear near the top of the list, or at least on the first page. So yeah, search engine optimization. And then you need to assess what skills are available in-house amongst these. And these are just examples of skills that you might need. And then if not, are you going to outsource, or are you going to train your people up? And do you have people that have the facility to be, or the aptitude, or the desire to be trained? And then is it in your budget to apply that training, or to get the external skills? So, and then you need to look, if you're going external, then you need to investigate external sort of service providers. So skills and resources. Then tools and technologies. Here, you've done your research, so you know what kinds of tools and things are out there. Then you need to start thinking, well, okay, so what are the requirements for my website based on what I've already learned in my strategy work, my research, my skills in that? What are the requirements that I want to set aside? So if I think about my little example of this gardening blog, Um, my requirements are fairly lightweight. I really want to be able to create nice, engaging articles which expose and give step by step of my little projects that I'm working on, enable me to add images, and enable people to engage with that content through comments and that. So it's a very stock standard blog site. So my business requirements are very lightweight, and I could probably use any number of website builders out there like WordPress or any Wix or any of the others. But if you're a business site and you're wanting to sell products and market, then you might want to look at different tools and technologies, and also specify your business requirements, what your requirements are for features and functionality in a lot more detail. And then you can list all the tools that you've found, and then see which ones check the boxes of your requirements as closely as possible, and then make a selection. Okay, so you also need to think about, well, when I talk about assessing your infrastructure requirements, this is where you're thinking about whether you're going to host the website yourself, which might be a little bit cheaper if you have the facilities already in place, if you have a web server. But if you don't have that expertise and you really don't know the first thing about web hosting, then you might want to then host it externally. And the infrastructure is thinking about, well, do I have the setup to do something like that? Do I have, am I able to host a web content management system and look after it? And do I have the infrastructure and space and storage for that? Or am I going to outsource that and do it externally? So just that kind of thing. And then you select your tool according to all those needs that you've done, to your budget, to the skills that you have, and then to the resources that you have available, and based on your business requirements. And then you choose an available and appropriate domain. So you've already done your research and already started thinking about what your domain is, and when I talk about domain, I'm just talking about your web address. So what is your web address? So if I was going to do my gardening blog, I might want to do Cape Town gardening .wordpress.com, because if I was using a WordPress blog site. So the wordpress.com is I'm enabled to have a free URL if I use their part of their website URL. And one would also need to check, is that taken? So these website builders often help you to work through that and to assess whether a domain is available or not. So that's the tools and technologies. Then you want to think about your audience. So I quite like this little image of sort of a person sort of looking out from stage out at the audience and seeing who's there, how many people are there and interested, and what do they look like, and what what sort of demographics am I looking at. And so this is just a fun way of just kind of visualizing the kinds of things you need to think about when you're analyzing your audience. So you sort of want to think about, well, what are their needs? What are their expectations when they come to the site in terms of, your content, what functionality and how it works, how it's laid out, any services and products if it was an online shopping or online services site. And then in some cases, you might, if this is a business site, you might want to actually create personas for your audience types. So say for a business site, this is an online shopping site. So one that just springs to mind is a commonly used one like Takealot, and then they might have personas for different audience types. So sort of people that are last minute gift shopping, or people that are buying to support their hobbies, or people that are just buying essentials, or so. And then think about, well, age groups and different demographics, and then they almost create a persona, a little picture, you know, a little graphic of that person, you know, what kind of age they'll be, what do they do, and what sort of are their interests, and then what are their needs. And this helps to kind of visualize, and that's overkill for my garden site, because I don't mind. Anybody could come and visit the site as long as they've got a shared interest. So it would be any range of demographics. But if it's a very specific site, you would want to think about, well, who am I going to target my content on my site for? And so you want to think about the different audience types and their needs. So that's audience. Then governance. So here, this is, as you can see, it's a very sort of dense slide, because this is one of my big interests. So there are two aspects, or several aspects of governance, but two main ones. One is the system governance. So this is where you want to ensure that the system has specific security set up, allows for particular functionality, enables certain or disables certain features, enables social media features, allows certain access to who's going to access the back end of the site to edit content, provides available templates and themes, and which ones are going to be selected for this site, which types of images, how are we going to manage our images. So system governance, what storage is available, accessibility, responsiveness. So responsiveness really refers to whether the website will adapt to different devices. So if a site is responsive, then it means that you can look at it on your mobile device and it'll still look good, and you'll still be able to access the content easily, and it won't look like a website that's just been shrunk. You know, so that's system governance. Content governance is really how you're going to manage your content on the site. So how long are you going to keep it for if you've got documents and downloads? How you're going to look at, how you're going to, what metadata you want to ensure is assigned to it, what content types are you going to use, any naming conventions for document downloads or uploads, any templates that you're going to apply to your content, and so on. So these are two big areas of governance. And then if this is a bigger organizational site, you might want to create a policy of web content management, web content policy, or a web domain policy. And then you might need to draft that policy, include the various aspects that I've mentioned, get it circulated across the the heads in particular in the organization, get agreement, and then get it ratified and then published and communicated to those that are it applies to and you are working on the web content management system. For my little blog site, the little bit of governance will be the system governance. So I just want to make sure that I'm doing things consistently and securely, and that my site is responsive and accessible. And then content governance, I want to make sure that I manage the content on the site in a good way, that people can find the content easily and apply metadata and things. But it's not as formal a process as it would be in a bigger organization. So that's all the preparation. And as you can see, that's a big part of starting a website, is you want to really do your research, do your preparation, so that when you're actually planning your website project, it's a lot easier and there's a lot less work. You've made a lot of the decisions already. It's like if you are building a house, you'd first want to set up your blueprints and your plans before you'd actually want to get going with the building. Okay. So then we plan the project. So even if it's my little blog site, I would want to put together a little project plan so that I get traction on it, so that I make sure that I actually reach my goal in the end, and put little deadlines and timelines in. Okay, I'm going to create this content, this much amount of content during the each week. This week we're going to do this, that week we're going to do that, and then eventually have your milestone at the end where you launch it. So in order to achieve any biggish task that's got lots of little steps, you want to manage it like a project. So you can choose your project management methodology. So I just put an example of the PMBOK one, which is the Project Management Book of Knowledge methodology, but there are many others out there. So use one and just be consistent with it. It's more important, the methodology is for big organizations where you're working with a bunch of other people. You want to make sure that you're all working in working in the project in a similar way, in a structured way. You want to identify streams and tasks. So if this is a big organization project, you might want to have different streams, like a governance stream or an information architecture stream, or a a web design stream, or a web content management system stream. But for my little blog site, I wouldn't need as much as that. I would just want to identify the groupings of tasks and the tasks themselves. If it's a big organization, you'd assign stream leaders and resources to those tasks. For my little blog site, it would just be me. Then the map, you'd map it according to a particular timeline. However, whatever tool you want to use for that mapping, listing your tasks, listing how long they'll take, and guessing the guesstimates of the time, and then reaching, when you plan your goal. Monitoring your process regularly, communicating and meeting regularly, that's important for big projects, and then adjust the plan as needed. Then you need to implement. So get going with your project. So arranging web hosting is pretty key, because you want to make sure that you host the web content management system and the site, and make sure that you have all that set up, and decide whether you want to host it internally on your own servers, if you have your own web server, or outsource it. So for my little blog site, I would host externally, and in one of the website builders, they offer hosting for free. And then the domain for my little blog site, I've already decided I'm going with the domain that I chose, the free one. But for a corporate or an organizational or a small business website, you would want to have your own domain, which you would need to secure, make sure it's available, and then it works almost like a rental. You basically rent the domain, so you need to subscribe to pay for it each year. It's not a huge cost, but it's one that would need to be built into the budget. And then you would configure the web CMS, the web content management system, or the web. If you're using a web builder, you need to set up the configurations. Apply governance where possible, where needed. Apply your initial theme, which you've already started thinking about, and is consistent with your purpose of your project. So for me, the gardening theme, I would want to have it, a light, fresh, sort of not a formal theme, because it's just a blog site. One that's clean and welcoming. But if it's a more formal organizational site, you would want it, the look and feel, to not distract from the products you're selling, and you want it to be clean and sort of consistent with your organizational brand, and all of that. So your initial theme is quite important. You set up the website shells, so without the content yet. But with starting to think about what sort of areas, sections you're going to have and navigation you might have, and then you'll enable those features and functionalities. Then you'll design the website. You'll map the information architecture, maybe using wireframes. You'll choose your look and feel, your color palette, graphics, and so on. You'll create the content. I'm rushing a little bit now because I see time is running a little bit short. So you'll create your content, writing for the web, make sure, assess what's reusable, what images, what videos you might have, audio, embedded content, define your content types if needed, source and create that content, structure and organize it, and apply metadata where needed, and review and publish. Then you want to publish the site. You want to have roles and responsibilities in big organizational sites. For my little blog site, it's just me, so I will review the content, but then I'm in charge of publishing. If it's a bigger site, you might want to have a whole marketing campaign during and after the website launch, leading up to it to create excitement and expectation, and then launching it. And then key is to make sure that the URL is on all business cards, documentation, templates, marketing materials, communications. Um, then maintenance and monitoring. So this is really important because you want to keep your site alive. There's nothing worse than when a site has like last updated 2010 or something. It really does reduce credibility of the site and make it sort of seem less current and less interesting. So always make sure that it's up to date. Review and update the content on a regular basis. Create new content on an ongoing basis. Keep it relevant. Keep it up to date, and apply any feedback from your monitoring and analytics to enhance the website usage, usability, user experience, and accessibility of that site. And then you monitor the website usage. So how many people are visiting, what kinds of keyword searches are they doing, what navigation usage, and there are free tools that you can use for that, like Google Analytics, which you can subscribe to also for a sort of a smallish, not a very big fee. Then testing, surveying, and polling, that's quite useful to test how your site is doing with your users, how they're finding it, what's difficult to use, what's not, what works, what doesn't. And then to optimize the website, either for search engines, if it's a product or services marketing type site, or if it's to also optimize it based on your user feedback and findings. And that's really it. Sorry about the rushed sort of last bit, but I realized that time was running a bit short, and I wanted to leave a little bit of time for questions. So we've got about five questions, 5 minutes left. So I wanted to just open up the floor to anybody. You're welcome to put questions in the chat or sort of, I don't know how Ntobeko wants to run the questions, but please feel free to ask if there's anything that was unclear or you have any questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Jenny. Those colleagues who have questions, they can either just write it on the chat or they can just turn on their mics and put the question to you. Are there any questions? Okay. Looks like there are no questions, Jenny. Everything is clear.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jenny, for such a very interesting and informative presentation.
Hi, Ntobeko.
Hi. Is there a question?
Yes. I would
Okay.
like to find out from Jenny if she can email the notes to us or the website we can get access to these notes.
Yes, certainly. I'll send them a PDF of the presentation to Ntobeko, and he's welcome to circulate it to attendees and anyone that's interested.
Okay, thanks, Jenny.
Pleasure.
Okay. Thanks, Nolu. Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, you see, one of the lessons that we are taking from the COVID-19 is that technology is the way to go. And one might think that what does designing of website has to do with librarians and information professionals? Because traditionally libraries were about books, but we have evolved over the years. So we do way more than that. In this modern day, libraries are focusing on eradicating social ills, and they include unemployment and poverty, to list a few. So with this presentation and what we have learned, we will be able to assist the aspiring entrepreneurs, in particular, applying it in our professional capacity and also in our personal lives. So thank you so much, Jenny. I'm going to invite Nolu to cover the last component. Before I give you a chance, Nolu, Mrs. Sias, we acknowledge you. We are aware you joined a bit later. You had something to do. So welcome. Nolu, will you please just cover the vote of thanks? Nolu, if you can please turn on your mic, Nolu. Your mic is still muted.
And Tobacco, while we're waiting for Nali, I want to thank Jenny and want to say good afternoon, morning to everyone. Thank you very much. Jenny.
Hello. Was there a question?
No. I just want to thank you on behalf of Liasa, the chairperson of Liasa. So thank you very much. I've joined a little bit later.
Oh,
Thank
it's
you,
a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mesh. Mesh is the branch chairperson, Western Cape branch chairperson of Liasa. Thanks, Mesh. Nolu, are you ready now?
Yes, Tobacco.
Okay, sure. You can go on.
That was such a huge information to get. Yeah, I would like to thank Anna Marie, the manager of Liasa, for providing the platform for us, and Marcia, the Liasa Western Cape chair, for her leadership. Most importantly, I would like to give thanks to Jenny Wood for facilitating. And academics are very busy at this time of the year, but she took her precious time to facilitate. And I would like to thank all the attendees abroad. Thank you a lot for attending this workshop.
Thank you so much, Nolu, and thanks, colleagues. And that concludes the business of the day. Thank you all. Have a nice day.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you. Bye.